The day my parents disowned me was ironically the same day I became a billionaire. I stood in their perfectly manicured living room, my MIT acceptance letter clutched in one hand, while they stared at me with a mixture of fury and disappointment that had become all too familiar. Medical school. My father's voice boomed through our mansion's grand foyer. We've had this plan since you were born. 3 generations of Thompsons have been surgeons. This isn't up for discussion, Alexandra. I looked around the room, taking in the wall of medical degrees, the family photos of doctors in white coats, the legacy that was suffocating me. My mother sat perched on her antique Victorian chair, pearls perfectly aligned, her face a mask of practiced concern. I want to revolutionize healthcare through technology, I tried explaining for what felt like the 100th time. MIT's biomedical engineering program. Enough. My father slammed his hand on his mahogany desk, the sound echoing through the room. No daughter of mine will waste her life playing with computers when she could be saving lives in an operating room. But Dad, that's exactly what I want to do. Just on a larger scale. My AI diagnostic system could help millions. AI. My mother's perfectly manicured hand flew to her throat. Alexandra, dear, computers are for people who couldn't get into medical school. We're Thompsons. We operate. I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Behind me, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, I could see the gardener trimming our perfect roses. Everything in this house was about perfection, about appearances, about following the predetermined path. The acceptance letter came with a full scholarship, I said quietly. And the venture capital firm already approved my seed funding. $5 million to develop my healthcare AI startup. The silence that followed was deafening. My father's face turned an alarming shade of red, while my mother's perfectly composed facade cracked slightly. Venture capital? She whispered as if the words themselves were dirty. You've been meeting with investors? Behind our backs. I had to, I stood my ground. You wouldn't listen. But they did. They saw the potential in my prototype. The way it can detect patterns that doctors might miss, cross-reference millions of cases in seconds. Enough. My father roared again, standing up so suddenly his heavy leather chair toppled backward. This ends now. You will decline this ridiculous scholarship, forget this computer nonsense, and apply to medical school as planned. Or what, Dad? Or you're no longer our daughter. My mother gasped softly but didn't contradict him. He never did. 22 years of perfect obedience had trained her well. You don't mean that, I whispered, though I knew he did. I could see it in his eyes, the same unyielding determination that had made him one of the country's top neurosurgeons. Choose, Alexandra. Right now. Your family or this fantasy. I looked down at my acceptance letter, then at my phone where the venture capital agreement waited for my signature. 3 years of secret coding sessions, of sneaking into hackathons, of building my prototype while they thought I was studying for the MC. It had all led to this moment. I choose my future, I said firmly, meeting his gaze. What happened next seemed to unfold in slow motion. My father walked to the antique desk where he kept his checkbook. The same checkbook that had paid for my private schools, my violin lessons, my perfect Thompson upbringing. Then you are dead to us, he said, his voice cold and clinical, his surgeon's voice. You have 1 hour to pack your things and leave. Your trust fund, your car, your credit cards, all cancelled. If you walk out that door, you walk out with nothing. My mother began to cry quietly, perfectly, even her breakdown was elegant. Alexandra, please. Think about what you're doing. Think about the family name. I was thinking about it. Thinking about how that name had been both a blessing and a curse. How it had opened doors but also built walls. How it had given me everything except the freedom to be myself. I'll take my future over the family name, I said, turning toward the grand staircase that led to my room. 1 hour, my father called after me. And then security will escort you out if necessary. In my room, my childhood sanctuary, I moved quickly, methodically. Laptop, external hard drives, the prototype I'd hidden in a false bottom of my jewelry box. Basic clothes, my emergency cash stash, and the locket my grandmother had given me before she died. Sometimes the bravest thing is disappointing those we love to become who we're meant to be, she'd whispered to me. She'd been the only one who knew about my coding, my dreams. The only one who'd understood. As I packed, my phone buzzed with the final confirmation from the venture capital firm. The funds had been transferred. I was officially the CEO of MedTech AI Solutions. $5 million to change the future of healthcare, just not the way my parents had planned. Exactly 58 minutes later, I walked down the grand staircase for the last time. My father stood by the door, his back rigid, while my mother dabbed at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief. "This is your last chance, Alexandra," he said as I reached for the door handle. "Choose wisely." I paused, looking back at the perfect life I was leaving. The family photos, the medical degrees, the weight of generations of expectations. "I already have," I said softly and stepped out into the sunshine. Behind me, the heavy door closed with a final resounding thud. Ahead of me lay uncertainty, challenge, and freedom. I walked to my car, my own car, bought with competition prize money they didn't know about, and loaded my bags. As I drove away from the only home I'd ever known, my phone buzzed again. A message from my development team: "Ready when you are, CO." I smiled through my tears, thinking about the irony. My parents had just cut me off from everything, not knowing I was now worth more than their entire family fortune. But they would learn sooner than they expected exactly what their disowned daughter could achieve. Little did I know that in just 3 months, fate would bring us face to face again, in circumstances none of us could have predicted. And the name they'd just forbidden me to use would be the one thing they couldn't escape. 3 months passed in a blur of coding sessions, investor meetings, and exponential growth. While my parents probably imagined me struggling in some tiny apartment, I was actually building an empire from my penthouse office overlooking Central Park. MedTech AI Solutions had exploded beyond even my most optimistic projections. Our diagnostic AI system was already being tested in 5 major hospitals, with a waiting list of medical centers desperate to implement our technology. The initial $5 million had grown to over $2 billion in valuation after our latest funding round. I kept my success quiet, operating under my first and middle names Alexandra Grace, to avoid immediate connection to the Thompson medical dynasty. The irony wasn't lost on me that while my father was saving lives one surgery at a time, my AI system had already helped diagnose over 10,000 cases that human doctors had missed. "Miss Grace," my assistant Michael appeared in my doorway. "The acquisition papers for Metropolitan Hospital Group are ready for your signature." I looked up from my monitors where I'd been reviewing the latest system upgrades. Metropolitan was one of the largest hospital networks in the Northeast, including the prestigious Thompson Memorial Hospital, where my father was chief of neurosurgery. He had no idea his workplace was about to become my property. "Any word on the board's reaction?" I asked, taking the papers. "They're relieved," Michael smiled. "Your offer saved them from bankruptcy, though they're quite curious about the mysterious tech billionaire who wants to revolutionize their hospitals." I was signing the final page when my phone rang. The number stopped me cold. "Thompson Memorial Hospital." "Alexandra Grace speaking," I answered, my voice carefully neutral. "Miss Grace," a familiar voice responded. "Dr. Roberts." I recognized him from hospital fundraisers growing up. "I'm calling about Dr. James Thompson. He's had a heart attack." The pen slipped from my fingers, leaving an ink blot on the acquisition papers. "Is he stable for now? But it's serious. I know you're the new owner of Metropolitan, and given Dr. Thompson's position here, I thought you should be informed." "I'll be there in 20 minutes, I said, already grabbing my coat. "Of course, Miss Grace. Though if I may ask, are you related to the Thompsons?" "The name similarity." I ended the call without answering. The drive to Thompson Memorial was surreal. How many times had I visited this hospital as a child, watching my father stride through these halls like he owned them? Now I actually did own them, and he was the patient. In the emergency room, I found my mother pacing in her Chanel suit, somehow looking perfectly put together despite the crisis. She didn't recognize me at first. 3 months of 20-hour workdays had changed me. Gone was the proper daughter in conservative clothes. In her place stood a CEO in a power suit that cost more than most cars. "Mom," I said softly. She froze, her perfectly applied mascara smearing as tears filled her eyes. "Alexandra, how did you?" "Miss Grace," Dr. Roberts interrupted, hurrying over. "Thank you for coming so quickly. As the new owner of Metropolitan, your authorization could help expedite some specialized treatments we'd like to try." I watched my mother's face as the words registered. "Owner. Metropolitan." Her eyes darted between me and Dr. Roberts, confusion replacing grief for a moment. New owner, she whispered. But Metropolitan was just bought by some tech billionaire who developed an AI diagnostic system, I finished for her. Who used venture capital money to build a healthcare technology empire. Who now owns this hospital and 13 others across the country. She sank into a nearby chair, her perfect posture crumbling. All this time, while we thought you were what, Mom? Failing? Struggling? Living on the streets without your money? I kept my voice low, professional. I was building something bigger than anything our family has ever achieved. My AI system helps diagnose conditions Dad might miss. It's already saved thousands of lives. Dr. Roberts cleared his throat awkwardly. Ms. Grace, about those treatments. I turned to him, shifting seamlessly into CO mode. Authorization granted. Whatever he needs. And I want my AI system implemented immediately for his case. The system that's been making headlines? My mother asked faintly. That's yours. Before I could answer, a nurse hurried over with a thick stack of papers. Mrs. Thompson? We need you to review these billing and treatment documents. Given the experimental nature of some procedures. My mother took the papers with trembling hands. I watched as she flipped through them. Saw the moment she reached the hospital letterhead with my name listed as owner and CEO. The papers slipped from her fingers, scattering across the floor. What have we done? She whispered, looking at me with new eyes. Alexandra, what have we done? The next 48 hours were a blur of medical procedures, tense conversations, and revelations that shook our family's foundation. My father survived his heart attack. Thanks partly to my AI system which had detected a complication his doctors initially missed. The irony wasn't lost on anyone. I sat in his private suite, reviewing his charts on my tablet while my mother dozed in a designer chair by his bed. The room's luxury and cutting-edge technology were recent additions, improvements I'd implemented throughout Metropolitan after the acquisition. My father's unconscious form lay surrounded by machines that now belonged to me, in a hospital that bore our family name but answered to my authority. A soft knock interrupted my thoughts. Dr. Roberts entered with another stack of papers. Ms. Grace, or should I say Dr. Thompson, your father's latest results are encouraging. Alexandra or Ms. Grace is fine, I replied, noting my mother stirring at the mention of our shared surname. The AI's prediction model suggests he'll regain consciousness within the next few hours. Remarkable system, he commented, glancing at my tablet. You know, when it first detected that minor arrhythmia we'd missed, well, it likely saved his life. My mother fully awoke then, her perfect makeup slightly smudged from fitful sleep. Alexandra's computer saved him? MedTech's diagnostic AI, I corrected gently. The same system Dad called a waste of time 3 months ago. It cross-references millions of cases in seconds, identifying patterns human doctors might overlook. The same system that's revolutionizing healthcare across the country, Dr. Roberts added. Though I must admit I never connected Alexandra Grace, the tech prodigy, with our Thompson family. A weak voice from the bed surprised us all. Neither did we. My father was awake, his usual commanding presence diminished by hospital gown and monitoring wires, but his eyes were alert and fixed on me. Hello, Dad, I said softly, maintaining my professional composure despite the storm of emotions inside. He tried to sit up, but the monitors beeped in protest. How long have you been here? Since they brought you in. I own Metropolitan now, remember? Along with 13 other hospitals. My computer nonsense turned out to be quite profitable. His eyes darted around the room, taking in the advanced equipment, the tablet in my hands, the way Dr. Roberts deferred to me. The acquisition, that was you? MedTech AI Solutions, I confirmed. Currently valued at just over $2 billion. Quite a return on that initial venture capital investment you dismissed. My mother made a small choking sound. $2 billion. The healthcare industry was ready for revolution, I explained, pulling up our company statistics. While you were forcing me to memorize surgical procedures, I was learning to code. While you hosted fundraisers for hospital wings, I was developing algorithms that could diagnose conditions faster and more accurately than human doctors. But medical school, my father started, was never my path. I cut him off. You were so focused on continuing the Thompsons surgical legacy that you couldn't see I'd found a way to save more lives than a single surgeon ever could. My AI system has helped diagnose over 50,000 cases in 3 months. How many surgeries have you performed in your entire career, Dad? He fell silent, the machines beeping steadily in the background. Mrs. Thompson, a nurse appeared with more papers. We need signatures for the experimental treatments that saved Dr. Thompson's life. My mother reached for them, but I intercepted the forms. I'll handle those. As owner of Metropolitan, my signature carries more weight. The nurse looked between us, confused. My mother's hand fell limply to her lap. Alexandra, she whispered, we were so wrong. When you left, when we said those terrible things. You were wrong, I agreed, signing the forms with my CEO flourish. You threw away your daughter because she wouldn't follow your predetermined path. But in doing so, you freed me to create something extraordinary. Something that saved my life, my father added quietly. I met his gaze. Yes. Though that wasn't my motivation. I built this company to help everyone, not just prestigious neurosurgeons with perfect families. Dr. Roberts excused himself, leaving us in a heavy silence broken only by medical equipment beeps. The bill, my father finally said. For all this. I assume it's substantial, I finished. The experimental treatments alone cost more than most people make in a year. But don't worry, I'm not going to hold it over you. Consider it my final act as your daughter. Final. My mother's voice cracked. But surely now that we understand. Now that I'm successful? I stood, smoothing my designer suit. Now that I'm wealthy and powerful? Now that I've proven you wrong in the most irrefutable way possible? That's not how family works, Mom. You made your choice 3 months ago. We made a mistake, my father said, his voice stronger now. A terrible mistake. I walked to the window, looking out over the city where my company's headquarters dominated the skyline. Yes, you did. But it was the best thing that could have happened to me. Without your ultimatum, I might have compromised. Might have tried to please you while pursuing my dreams. Instead, you forced me to focus entirely on my vision. Turning back, I saw tears in my mother's eyes and something unfamiliar in my father's respect. I have a board meeting, I said, gathering my things. The nurses have my number if there are any complications. The AI will continue monitoring your condition. Alexandra, please. My mother stood. Can't we try to what? Be family again? You made it very clear that family comes with conditions. I don't accept conditions anymore. I set them. I paused at the door, looking back at the people who had given me life but tried to deny me my dreams. I'll have my assistant send over the discharge papers when you're ready. Good day, Dr. and Mrs. Thompson. As I walked through the halls of my hospital, nurses and doctors nodding respectfully as I passed, I thought about legacy. The Thompsons had built theirs on individual surgical excellence. I had built mine on democratizing healthcare, on using technology to save lives regardless of who held the scalpel. My phone buzzed, another hospital group wanting to implement our AI system. Another opportunity to expand our reach. Another chance to prove that sometimes the greatest success comes from refusing to accept the limitations others place upon us. The Thompson medical dynasty would continue, but not in the way they had planned. Not through surgeries and white coats, but through algorithms and innovation. And somewhere, in an antique Victorian chair in a mansion filled with medical degrees, my mother was finally understanding what they had lost, and what I had gained, the day they told me I was dead to them. Because sometimes, being dead to your family is exactly what you need to come alive on your own terms.